G'day from Australia. My name is Ashley Davis. Welcome to my coding live stream. This is recorded live and will be available on YouTube later. You're watching me build the Photosphere Fullstack application from scratch, and I'm doing my best to explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You can see my handle on the screen. Before we get into coding, I'd like to start with the tradition we have here in Australia. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm broadcasting. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. These live stream sessions are to support my new book, Rapid Fullstack Development. You can find it at rapidfullstackdevelopment.com, and you can read the first chapter for free online. I'm self-publishing this book, and I really appreciate your support. You can catch up on previous sessions in this live stream on the Code Capers YouTube channel. So that's Code Capers. You go to playlists, look up the Rapid Fullstack Development playlist, click on View Playlist, and you'll see all the previous sessions in this live stream and the previous live streams that I've done to support Rapid Fullstack Development. You can find the code on the Rapid Fullstack Development page on GitHub, and the code that I'm going to create in today's session will be up on the GitHub org after the live stream has finished. So we are building the Photosphere application. It's an application for uploading photos and videos. The front end is going to look a little bit like this. This is the Google Photos application. You can see how it nicely lines up all the photos with the right-hand side. That's the kind of effect that I'm trying to achieve. And also how the last line in each kind of section doesn't have to line up. I think that's kind of a cool thing. So how do we do this? How do we go about building a photo gallery that looks like this? Now, I have done this before, so I do kind of know, but I'm at the moment, I'm just trying to put myself in the headspace of someone who's approaching this for the first time and trying to figure out how they would do this, to show you what the process is for developing something like this from nothing with no prior knowledge. Well, the first thing I want to do is to understand how feasible it is to code something like this for myself. Do I code it myself? Do I use some sort of open source library or some sort of other kind of package or whatever? They're the kind of questions that I need to know before I start developing this front end. So I'm going to be doing some prototyping, probably in the next few sessions, not just this session. I'll be working through a number of prototypes to figure out how to create a photo gallery like this in a front end. Now, this is all throwaway code. So I'm really just doing coding in the next few sessions to answer questions and to get a better understanding of what I'm doing and the direction I'm heading in. And then I'm going to throw that code away and start again. That makes a lot of sense because, I don't have to spend any time now on this code. I don't have to spend any time making this code beautiful or elegant or well designed. My only job is to get a better understanding, and then I'll throw it away and I'll come back. And when I come back to writing the front end for Photosphere for real, that's when I'm going to employ my real rules of coding and make it nice and elegant and be doing small changes, small commits, and all that kind of stuff that I've talked about in previous live streams. But just for the moment, I'm just doing a bit of a hack and slash coding to figure out how I'm going to do this. I'm just in the terminal here on Windows 11. I'm running Node.js version 16. All the commands that I'm going to be using are going to work on macOS and Linux as well. Nothing I'm showing you here is specific to Windows. So where do I start? Well, if you remember in the last session, I built a template for a React application, a React front-end application. It's bundled using Parcel. I've actually got that in the directory here. So that's the React Parcel template. So you can see the previous session for that on YouTube if you want to watch me how I created this template. And you can also find the code for that on the Rapid Fullstack Development organization on GitHub. The prototypes that I'm making in the next few sessions, and also eventually when I make the real front end, are going to be based on this template. So what I'm doing to start off today's work is just to copy the template. I'm going to copy that to, the name is going to start with the name prototype, just so I remember that this is throwaway code. This is not code that I want to put any kind of investment into making elegant or beautiful or whatever. It's just throwaway code that I'm using to answer some questions about how I do what I want to do. And I'm going to call this the simplest photo gallery because the aim of this session really is to figure out what is the simplest code I can write to make a photo gallery. The real question here is, can I actually make a photo gallery and have it laid out nicely just using CSS? So when I get in here, I've got a template project. I'm going to run an npm install to make sure I get my dependencies. I'm going to open Visual Studio Code from this directory. I'll put my terminal and VS Code side by side so we can see what I'm doing while I'm doing it. The first thing I want here is, if you remember back to the first live stream session in this series of live streams, I created a random photo gallery generator. In fact, you can see the code for that here. So this is the random gallery generator. The code for this is on GitHub as well. The live stream where I developed this is on YouTube. Now, when you run this program, it generates some randomized gallery test data using the Unsplash API. You can see some example, the test data here. This is the photo gallery test data that was generated from the Unsplash API. It's just a JSON file. Now, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to copy that over. So I could connect this front end up to the back end, but there's no reason to do that because it's just a prototype. It's not the real front end. And the quicker way to develop this, to make this work, is to use test data. And to basically, this test data that I generated in a previous session, I'm just going to drag that across into my new project. So I've got the gallery.json file here. You can see that I've got it in my project now. So I'll close down the random gallery generator project. I don't need that anymore. Close down the JSON file. So I'm in app.js here. The template is, as you can see here, it just prints hello world into the browser. But what I want to do here is I want to bring in my gallery data. Now, this is a cool thing that you may not know about. You can basically just include a JSON file or require in a JSON file into your JavaScript code, and then you've got it. You've just loaded that data into memory. Now, to show that you've got it, you can do a console log to print out to make sure that we get that data okay. To test this, we've got to start it and run it in the browser. So this is starting the Parcel development web server, and it shows you where you can go to open the web page. So you can see here, this is the template we created in one of the previous sessions. But if we look in the console here, you can see an array printed out. You can also see a warning here from React, and that's because, well, this code here in index.js was created for, I guess, React version 17, and it's telling me that I need to upgrade the function I'm using here. But I'm not going to worry about that now. I will deal with that problem later because it's not going to hold us back at the moment. But I do want to look in this array, and I do want to check that my test data has come through correctly. So we've got all the test data for the photo gallery. Width is going to be useful, the width of each image, the height of each image, and then under, where was it? Under URLs. There's a bunch of links to the actual photo on Unsplash. The one we're going to be using in the gallery is the thumbnail. So it's a link to a small version of the image that's suitable for display in our photo gallery. We need the width and the height because we want to preserve the aspect ratio. Ultimately, we want to have the aspect ratio. We don't want to show this photo at like width 4,000 pixels and height 6,000 pixels or whatever it is. We don't, because that would be too big. That would be as big as the web page probably. We want to scale each photo down. But we want to preserve the aspect ratio. Now, another way that I could visualize this data is to actually just render it out in the browser. So let's do that. Nest it all in a div, and then I've got my gallery data. So I'm going to map over that and convert each item into an element to display underneath this div. So at the moment, I'm just going to use another div. Got to return that. And what am I going to do here? A really cool little trick you can do is just to JSON stringify whatever the item is. Give it some nice syntax there. The number 4 there basically gives it 4 space tabs, which makes it a nice readable format. Missing a closing curly brace there. So now you can see we've got like a wall of JSON data being printed out. That's pretty unreadable, so that's not a great visualization. But literally, if I just change this div to a pre, it should be actually it should print in the pre-formatted. Yeah, there we go. So we've got a nicely kind of formatted, JSON file basically dumped in the browser here. Makes it a little bit easier to kind of see. You can see the width and the height together. You can see all the URLs, the thumbnail URL here. That's the one that we're particularly interested in for the gallery. We could look at the thumbnail by itself just by pulling that out. So it's item.thumbs.urls.thumb. And now we get a list of the URLs. So you can see where I'm going with this, right? Now we change this to an image, and we'll actually get the images being displayed. Did I do it? First version of the gallery. Now, there's problems here, obviously. There's all these ugly gaps you can see here. It does kind of line it up nicely, like along the right-hand side. So that's not too bad, actually. But really what we want to do is we want to equalize the height of all the images, just so that we don't have these ugly gaps. That's what I want to get rid of at the moment. There's also another warning here, and this is a warning that I can fix immediately as well. So it says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So this is a common thing in React. where every item that you're rendering in a list of things needs a key prop. And I can actually just use the same URL as the key. So that should solve that warning. Do a refresh to make sure it's gone. Yep, we've only got the original warning about React 18, which I'll put later. What could we do here if we set the, what's this going to look like if we set the height of each image to 200 pixels? Well, that's a bit better. That's a bit better. So you can see how now that, well, we've got rid of the gaps in one instance, but we've now got all our gaps, lining up on the right-hand side. So this is a bit of progress because I do want to be able to kind of set the height of rows like that. I'm gonna convert over to using Flexbox here, just because I know I can do the next thing I want to try with Flexbox, and that is to basically force all the images along one row, and then see what I can do with Flexbox wrapping to see if that kind of makes it look any better. So I'm turning on Flex. Let's set direction to row. Let's see what that looks like. So we've forced all our images to be on one row now, which makes it go too far. We don't want to do this horizontal scrolling. We want it to kind of nicely map multiple rows. So this is where I want to try the Flex wrap and turn on wrapping. So I mean that doesn't really get the result I want either because we've still got all these gaps, and I'm not sure how we're going to fix this using CSS. Now this is the problem really with trying to build a photo gallery with CSS, and I have previously Googled this because I did want to know what I was getting myself into. If you look at any kind of example photo gallery that uses CSS, they always basically have all the photos be the same aspect ratio, because then you can line them up perfectly easily with CSS. But I want to preserve the aspect ratios, and I want to have it each row at a kind of a fairly consistent height. But I need to get rid of this. I need to get rid of this gap here. That's going to make it look more like Google Photos, which is what I'm aiming for. But it just doesn't seem possible to do this exactly with CSS. So I'm going to have to kind of move into the realm of JavaScript and, basically do some kind of JavaScript logic. What I want to do here is I want to expand the width of each photo here so that the entire row kind of maxes out along the edge here. And that means basically because I want to preserve the aspect ratio, that means making the height of each row incrementally bigger and just growing it until it lines up. But I think the only way to do that is in JavaScript, and then to kind of set the row height individually for each of these rows. So that's a big leap to take, and that's what I'm going to be doing in the next session. So that's it for this session. I am doing these sessions to support my book, Rapid Full Stack Development. Please check it out online. You can read the first chapter for free. Thanks so much. I will be back next week. I'll be continuing my prototyping. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next week.